So, welcome to another Lure Fishing for Wrasse UK video. Well, today's video isn't from the UK and it isn't about wrasse. This is all about a trip to Costa Rica that I came back from at the end of January. The trip was with 5 other anglers and our guide Dave Lewis, who you may or may not have heard about, but he's a totally accomplished angler. It was through, we were actually staying, and the fishing was organised with a company out there called CR Fishing Week, which is Costa Rica Fishing Week. It's in the little village of Samara in the province of Guanacaste. So this holiday was originally booked in 2018, but a certain disease happened, as we all know, and it took until 2022 to actually get out there. So a long time. I tried to do some research going before the holiday actually happened as to what I would need, but through searching YouTube I couldn't find, hopefully, the answers I'm going to give other people for doing a trip like this. If you've never done anything like this, there just wasn't the information that I wanted out there. So hopefully this video is going to give you what you need to know. So the fish we were fishing for rooster fish, which is it's not a member of the jack family, but it sort of looks like it. Some people say it is, but it's not. A very distinctive fish. It's got 7 rays to its dorsal fin. They fight like hell. Very impressive. They can grow to that big. We didn't quite get them that big, unfortunately, but so they were the primary target. Secondary was a Cubera snapper. These fish have a serious reputation of flying up from the depths. They'll grab your lure and they're taking it straight back down to its rocky layer, and you won't get it back. You probably haven't got strong enough tackle to tame them. Well, I'll come on to what I was using that should have tamed them. The other fish we would be catching out there would be jacks, jack crevalle. There's also big-eyed jacks, not that we caught one, but also horse-eyed jacks as well, I believe. There were Spanish mackerel, so they're the famous snippy fish that will just bite through your line because they've got jaws like that, unless you're lucky, and you will see hopefully later on that I was lucky. And a few other bits and pieces. If you were going offshore, there's chance of marlin of various types and mahi-mahi. So there were some big hard pulling fish. So rods, from what I could find out, it was a matter of finding what size lures we're going to be taking. So the way I'm going to do the rest of the video is in the various bits of tackle. So I ended up taking 3 rods. So this is the first one. If I zoom in like that, you should then be able to see what it can do. So this is unfortunately discontinued now. This is a Shimano Ossia BB heavy game. It is 7'6" long. So as you can see, this rod will cast up to 150 grams. This is a beast. I thought to myself, if I catch a Cubera, once I bought this rod, if I catch a Cubera, if there's a rod I'm going to land it on, it's this. Unfortunately, I didn't catch one, but it caught nevertheless. So that was my heavy setup. So this is going up to 150 grams. The next one, I tried various medium weight rods. I know lots of people like the Shimano STC range of rods. To me, they didn't feel quite right. Even though their ratings are good and strong, just personally, I didn't like them. But rods are like that. Some people will love one rod, other people will hate it. So I didn't like it. I've then been searching on eBay for the next rod. So this is a Shimano STC Blue Romance, so different to the current STC range. So that's the information on it there. Now, unfortunately, this rod has been discontinued. I happened to set an alert on eBay, and one day eBay pinged up and said, there's a rod for sale, and I looked at it and thought, that's the rod I want. The guy wouldn't take a buy it now price, unfortunately, and I said to myself, well, as simple as that, I want that rod. I put in a stupidly high bid, and obviously I won it. So this is my medium weight rod. We'll cast up to 100 grams. It ended up being the rod I used more than anything else. I did have to modify it slightly because of just me and how I am. there is a rod builder in Plymouth called Alex Price. You can find him on Facebook. I didn't like the original reel seat, so he's put a better Fuji reel seat on there for me. The previous one didn't have any aluminium reinforcements over the ends, so we had that changed. The handle also finished there as well, so I had a handle extension put on. As a result of that, I've got a lot more leverage to cast like that, opposed to like that, where there's not much. Yeah, so that might be fine for casting a lure in this country, but when you're casting a bigger lure, you need that extra bit of leverage. So I had the handle extension, really pleased with that. A couple of guys that are guides on the boat were going, oh, I've broken it. No, it's an extension, it's supposed to be. I loved it, it's fantastic. So that was the medium weight one. I did think to myself, that was going to be everything I was going to take rod-wise. Having had a chat with Dave Lewis, he also recommended that I take a lighter rod. So this is the rod that I use if I'm going to, occasionally I go to Tenerife, for example, if I'm fishing off the rocks. So this is a Gamakatsu Achilles extra heavy. It's not that heavy, but this will cast 60 grams, and it will cast 60 grams quite comfortably. I'm really glad I took this, because this is what we used for catching bonito to be used as bait, and this was perfect for it. So the bonito themselves are that sort of length compared to the fish we get in the UK. My God, these little things pull. We would see shoals of them that would be 200 yards square of pure fish, and yeah, they were fantastic fun. The others were sort of, no, let's go and fish for the bigger stuff. I could have fished for them all day long. It was just great fun, and they really pulled. So that's the rods. Now we'll talk about reels. So I took 3 reels with me. We start off biggest and go down smallest. So at the time, I couldn't afford a Stella. I still can't afford a Stella. I've always been a Shimano man, so I wasn't going to go down the Saltiga route, and I can't afford a Saltiga either. So my next option was going to be a Shimano Twinpower. So this is a 14,000 Twinpower. To be exact, it is a SW 14,000 XGB. This one has since been superseded, but this was the big gun. I've modified it very slightly by adding a Gamexus knob to it, so it's got 2 more bearings than normal. It's sexy. It's not as sexy as a Stella, because a Stella would go spin in the wind, which is really cool. But it's got a high gear ratio, 6.2, I believe, to 1. You will find a video dedicated to this reel on my channel elsewhere. So if you want to know more about it, you can find out more about it there. And also the after use video. This one had an interesting point in its instructions that came with it, saying that it might feel slightly geary at first. It's because the gears are so heavy duty, they need to be worn in. So that's Shimano saying that. So that was interesting. It's fantastic now. If I used it a couple more times, it would get even more fantastic. Like all my reels, every day they get rinsed off, dried. If it's stored for any amount of time, the drag's wound off as well. And obviously I don't keep a spool band on there at the moment. So that was the big one. If you've never used a reel this big, it's a big reel. The fishing we were doing, when you're casting a reel this heavy, and on the Offshore BB rod that heavy, it's not physically heavy, but casting it's heavy. It's hard work. So for the guys in this country that are doing this, if you're a carp fisherman, you might be able to equate to this. If you're casting your spod rod, so a thing full of bait, so it's quite heavy. Imagine you're doing that for 8 hours a day, all day, and you're casting as fast as you can. That's what it's like. So that was the big gun. Okay, it's got, I believe, 22 kilos of drag. I've got PE8 line on there, so it's got a breaking strain of about 112 pounds. If I was going to hook a Cubera, that was going to get it in. So that's the big gun. Then coming down one range. So this is the latest Shimano Saragosa. It is exactly an SW 8000 HGA, the latest model. This one, yet again, I've modified with a nice aluminium geared knob with 2 ball bearings in it. They come standard with a sort of a football shaped one which has got grippy rubber on it, but personally I think they're horrible. But anyway, excuse me, not quite as fast as a gear ratio of this one as there is on the Twinpower. This one's 5.6 I believe to 1. But a nice reel. I first got it, I thought, cool, that's big, isn't it? This was really nice to use. I loved this reel a lot. Not quite as heavy physically as the Twinpower, but it was just nicer to use. Liked it a lot. And finally, on the light rod, I took my bass reel from the UK. So this is a Stradic a C5000 XGL. This is the latest Stradic. Just slightly the same size as a 4000, just a deeper spool, and I thought a deeper spool might be more appropriate for just in case I hook something that just goes for the horizon. But hearing the drag scream on this thing was lovely. Yeah, lovely little reel. I can't recommend that high enough. Would I replace it? Probably not. It's that nice. So that's reels. One of the things I find myself, normally when I'm fishing and I'm holding a reel, I'm holding it like that, 2 fingers either side of the stem. When you've got a reel this big, particularly obviously with the reel seat and it's double locked up there, it was much easier for my right hand to be holding the line like that and casting like that. It gave me a stronger grip on a rod and a reel that is heavier than I'm normally used to, and casting a lure that's heavier than I'm normally used to. That was something I learned. I learned that after about day 3, and I fished that way continuously onwards. If I'm using big stuff again, I won't even think about that. It's going to be that every single time. Something to think about. It might help you a little bit. I spoke to, for what I could find, yet again, should I take mono or should I take fluorocarbon or both? The guy that has fished there more than anyone else, Dave Lewis, said, just take mono, forget fluorocarbon. Yes, there will be people that will say fluorocarbon is better, fish can't see fluorocarbon in the water. Well, I can see fluorocarbon in the water, so I'm sorry for them saying it's invisible. Personally, I think it's a load of rubbish, but that's my choice. I did take a spool of fluorocarbon coated leader material in 50 pound because I was told, no, you can't fish too heavy, the fish will see it. So I used it. My knots I trust 100%. I'll put my life on them, and this fluorocarbon coated mono broke and I lost a fish, and unfortunately I lost a fish with my lure in its mouth. As I only use barbless hooks, I hope that fish has managed to shed the lure and there's some lucky bugger out in Costa Rica who's found himself a nice popper. But then anyway, going back to it, so then what did I do? From what I've seen online, not about Costa Rica, but from the Morning Tide guys actually out in Australia and the various places they managed to fish, I ended up using Varawas Ocean Record in 3 breaking strains. So there's 70 pound, 100 pound, and then the big boy 180, which is nice. They come with these spool bands, so you don't get line pissing off the spool once you've stopped using it. It's literally just a matter of pulling and it comes out. So 70 pound, yes, you can call it overkill, but I used this on my light gear, even though the braid was 30 pound braid. This was my leader, just because some of the fish do have teeth that we don't necessarily get over here. The 100 pound went on my medium set, and fairly obviously the big stuff went on the big setup. I personally found it made no difference to the fish at all. The fishing we had out there was difficult. Right, so yeah, the actual fishing, it was tough. First day, I had my first rooster, which was fantastic. You'll see a clip at some point in the video of my Saragosa. You can't read the print on the spool because it's blurred because the line was pissing out. It was great. They were really pulling hard. Then the second rooster I caught, as I said earlier on, the leader broke. And it was like, what? Couldn't work that out. The only thing we could think of was it might well have been a Spanish mackerel that also saw the popper and went for it, and that's what actually cut the line because the knot didn't break. But it was an El Nino year, so unfortunately we had a lot of red tide. And this took 2 or 3 days for the guides to work out where the fish were with relationship to this red tide. It was awful. There were just huge patches of red algae in the sea. We eventually found that if we went as far south as we could, and before the tide changed, and then worked our way back, as long as we were ahead of that algae, we could still be catching, and we were. But we'd had a few fish, but it had been hard work. It was 30 degrees out there. You know, you're completely covered up, but it was hard work. So the day 4, we decided to go offshore. Our plan was the 3 of us on our boat were going to be looking for yellowfin tuna busting on the surface, and we'll be casting poppers to them, which we were all keyed up for, ready for that. And the crew got the trawling gear out and saying, no, we're trawling for marlin, which we didn't really want to do. At one stage, first rod went off, one of the guys took it. He lost a marlin that went underneath the boat. Then another rod went off. I had a female mahi-mahi. Then another one went off, and I then had a male mahi-mahi. So the female was about 10 kilos, the bull was about 15 kilos. I've seen on various bits on YouTube the difference in their shape and the heads of the shape. The bull has got a very square forehead, if you like, whereas the female is more sloped. So they're really obvious. But electric colours, unfortunately, as soon as they die, they lose their colours. I say die because as much as everything was catch and release, those were kept to be eaten, and they tasted amazing. I did finally get to hook a marlin. The rod went off. One of the crewmen gave me the rod. We saw this explosion in the distance as line was pouring off the reel. I was looking down at the reel saying, I'm going to get spooled, I'm going to get spooled. I literally held on as tight as I could. I braced myself against the gunwale of the boat, waiting for this knot to break. Eventually the line came down to the knot on the spool. It had taken that much. Yeah, this was pretty serious. Sweat was pouring off me. The crewman said, wind, wind, wind. I wound and I was getting the line in, and I was thinking, blimey, I might actually land this. Still winding, glass of water, still winding, and eventually I got the double leader knot onto the spool. By this stage I could see that the leader was going into the water sort of just behind the 2 outboards. The fish shook its head 3 times, and I'm surprised you didn't hear me swearing in the UK. I lost it. Disappointing to say the least.
Okay, Ruby, está bien, excelente. ¿Qué hicieron ustedes al final? Ya que tuvimos 2 marlins, uno no lo enganchamos, el otro lo perdimos, se sacó como a los 30 minutos. Tuvimos un vela grande también, el cliente se puso a verlo brincar, le dejó la cuerda libre y se le enojó.
But anyway, that's what the fishing was like. It got better. On our last day, the fishing was literally off the scale. It was fish after fish after fish after fish after fish. For me, it was just roosters. Some of the other guys had roosters and jacks. One guy that went out there, he was desperate to catch a rooster, and he literally caught his first rooster on the last day. It was his only rooster, unfortunately, but you could see the relief in his face. Yeah, we fished hard. So with regards to braid, it was a long thought out choice as to what I take braid wise. I needed to be careful from the point of view that if I hooked something serious and I couldn't stop it, and if I got spooled. So I took spare line as well. So on the heavy setup, from Terry at Gigabyte, I used Tasline Elite. So this is PE8. So in theory it's £80, but as PE8 it has an actual breaking strain of 116.2, because that'll make a difference, pounds. This was a 600 yard spool. It was 120 odd quid, very expensive, but I got not quite 300 meters on the Twinpower of this, meaning that if I did get spooled, I could respool while I'm out there and not be down at all. Tasline, it's expensive. It is very, very, very good. It's really quiet. It's an 8-strand. It's not coated. I can't say anything negative about it, to the point that I've now gone over to Tasline for everything. If I find a negative, I'll do a video about it. But this stuff is good shit. So PE8 on the big gun setup. I didn't bring the spool downstairs, but it'll be the same sort of thing. Then on the medium setup, I then went with PE4. So in theory, 40-pound breaking strain, but it's got a breaking strain of something like 60 something or other pound, an actual tested breaking strain. So that was the PE4. And finally, on the light setup, it was PE1.7, which has got a 30-pound odd breaking strain. And yeah, they were perfect. So they were the lines I used. I did have spools of Braid with me in case I got spooled on either of the other 2 reels. So I managed to get a PE4 spool, 300 metres of it, I think on offer from Mr. Fish in Jersey. So that was useful to take, didn't cost me a lot. And I had an old spool of Braid I could have put on the small setup in case I got spooled on that. So that's Braid. So most of the fishing I do in the UK, I've used a modified Albright knot, but you know that's with a leader of 25 to 30-pound breaking strain, something like that. Well, as I showed you earlier on, for the stuff I was doing up there, I was going up to leader breaking strains up to 180 pounds. I had to learn to tie an FG knot. Because the trip got cancelled so many times, I learned to tie one, and I got it to the point that I had a mate of mine, Adrian Evans, the constant angler, who's my cameraman today, come round, and we held this PE8 Braid and 180-pound leader, and we both pulled on it. We both pulled on it so hard, we both said, no, that's not going to break. So I was happy with that. So my leader knot, my FG knot, is that. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the way I've tied it. I'm happy that it won't come undone. However, I found a problem with it. So one of the problems I found with the FG knot, even as you saw earlier on as to how small I trimmed my tag end to, every now and again the knot would get caught like that on the tip ring. And when you're winding in with the power of this gear, there's a lot of pressure on that knot being pulled in. So I had to let line out then to be able to wind it in. It would cast without a problem at all. It's going to be virtually impossible for me to show you. Oh, there you go. I've caught it live like that. I hope this shows it up, whoops, well enough. But that happened. As much as I trust the knot from its breaking strain point of view, it's something that made me think, okay, do I want to use that knot again? I personally would, for my next trip, whenever that's going to be, I'm going to see how I get on tying a PR knot and see if I can make a PR knot smoother at the end. So my FG knot, I finish with do a risotto finish on it. I think I've seen PR knots, once the knot is finished, it then carries on down the braid a little bit, so you don't get any form of a ramp. But just to reiterate, that is how small my tag end is. So pretty damn small. Yeah, I could cut it a tiny bit smaller, but I'd like something there for always the just in case bit. If you've got any comments, I'll be interested to hear them, but I'm going to try the PR knot for future stuff.